Certified financial planner professionals are certified to provide comprehensive financial planning that can address just about any facet of one's financial life, including retirement, estate planning, taxes, education, and more. For more info, go to letsmakeaplan.org to find a CFP professional for you.
We got a lot of things here. The Cartijay, we got the Carket, we got a whole lot of different names. For Greeny's sweater, how about the Greta?
That's a jetter, my word.
A vest or a sweater vest, the Cardigacket, whatever it is. My outfit today is getting a lot of attention. We're Mike and Mike. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests appear on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Our next trivia question will be at the bottom of this hour. So just about a half hour from now, we'll ask a question about Mike and Mike history.
Good one.
And I want to tell you, first of all, good morning, Will Cain.
Hi, Will.
Good morning, guys.
And welcome. We have a bunch of things to get into with Cain, who's in our studio here. But, Mike, so Pete Genesini sent me this picture. So we did a story this morning. We did a trivia question about our first studio.
Yes.
And people remember what they think of as our first studio because when we first went on ESPN News, we were in a radio studio.
Yes, we were.
And in retrospect, it looks small compared to where we've been since.
Yes, it does.
But these people never saw our first studio.
No.
And no one would have because we weren't on television. But we were in a closet. I mean, it was literally a closet. So I asked Pete if he had any pictures, and he does. So I posted this on Instagram. This is right now at ESPN Greeny on Instagram. I have a picture of us in our first with the Stanley Cup.
The Stanley Cup, I remember
in
that.
our first studio, yeah. And if you look at it, you can see we're leaning in. That's where we sit. Those were our seats. That's where we sat together to do the show.
Oh, listen, I remember you could reach out and touch the walls of that one. It was minute.
It's sort of fun sharing that. Where were you then?
Really
2000, January of 2000. Will Cain, where were you?
That's the millennium, man. Doesn't everybody know where they were in the millennium? I was in Austin, Texas. I went to a New Year's Eve at Stubbs Barbecue. That's exactly where I was. January 1st, 2000.
It's more specific than I meant. I just meant in general in life. Where were you then? When we were doing this. Where were you?
I was living on a ranch in Montana and back in Texas for the Christmas, New Year's vacation.
What was your job? What did you do then?
I was a ranching.
You were a rancher?
Yes, ranching.
What would be some of your ranching responsibilities?
Well, we took hunters back into the mountains. That's what we did. We were a hunting outfitter. We took hunters back into the mountains to hunt for elk.
What kind of outfits did you have?
Not cardigans.
Did you track?
Or swackets.
Were you a tracker?
No, I was like the gopher of the ranch hand business. I was like, put that on that mule, pack that saddle, pack that, mule pack, put everything in, because these guys would go 13 miles back into the mountains and stay for at least a week at a time to try to hunt an elk. And I was just the guy that I was manual labor. That's it. I did not track. I was not a guide. Nothing like that.
So funny, because that was what I considered doing also right out of college. I thought I would do that.
Awesome.
I'd help people hunt for, I was about to say shop for elk. That's what I would have done. I would have been a personal shopper long before I would have been an elk tracker or whatever it is you're talking about. Okay, we got a lot of topics on the table today. Again, trivia coming up shortly. Will Cain, the Kevin Durant thing. We've had a bunch of conversation about it here this morning. What are your thoughts?
I really, really like what Kevin Durant has done in the last couple days. Not commenting on Twitter to every single individual that has said something negative towards him, but rather the way he owned it in the last 24 hours. Vulnerability, apparently, is the key to likability. We should all remember that when we want to be right. I could be speaking into the mirror as I talk right now. Mm-hmm. But every time you want to be right and impervious and bulletproof on something, you got to remember that your vulnerabilities are actually the window into who you are. We all bond over our negative things. Hey, we bond over our failures, our weaknesses. I have no calves. No calves. Zero calves. Skinny legs. And that makes someone else go, hey, me too.
I've got skinny legs, too.
And now we've bonded. No one bonds over.
Pretty good calves.
See,
oh, my God.
No one cares, Golic. No one's heard you say I have good calves and goes, I like that guy.
All right.
You could sell Golic's legs in a cart at Disney World, like as the turkey legs they sell. But anyway, go ahead.
So here's my point.
Where you're going.
Here's my point. Here's what Kevin Durant has done. I believe this was within the last 36 hours. In true form, he was on a YouTube video on his channel in the comment section where somebody says to him, why is somebody of your stature care? Why do you care what people say?
Yeah.
And this is a comment to one guy.
Let me hear it.
Of my stature, I play basketball. I got acne. I grew up with nothing. I'm still trying to figure myself out in my late 20s. I slide into DMs. I make fun of my friends. I drink beers and play Xbox. I'm closer to you than you think.
Okay, fascinating, very interesting. I get all of that. So these are all of his imperfections, and I'm not sure if what he's trying to say is I'm just like you, or if he is actually trying to give you more of a window into his insecurities, which are clearly on display in this thing. And I went completely the opposite direction from the direction you're going on this, Will, which is I have no criticism of Kevin Durant doing what he did. I don't think it's a big deal. I think it will be forgotten about in 10. We'll move on to the next little manufactured irrelevant social media story. But I do think it is a window into the following, and I will use the same phrase I used a moment ago. I'm not a therapist or a psychiatrist, but I am a longtime patient. And if there's one of the things that I've learned that is the most valuable is that there are only two people who can determine for you what you think about yourself, what your feelings are about yourself, you and everyone else. And if you're allowing anyone else, literally any other person in the world, to significantly impact in any meaningful way what you think of yourself, then you're allowing people a power. You are giving them a power that they should not have over you. And that, I think, is what's going on here. So it's all well and good to say I'm more like you than you think I am, even though I make all this money and I'm so incredibly talented and famous. I get all of that, and all of that is true. What I'm saying is, if you're letting these comments from a person who, if they met you in the street, would walk up and beg to take a selfie with you and show every friend they've ever had their picture in the street with Kevin Durant, if you're allowing that guy's negativity to in any way impact you, then in my opinion, you're making a mistake.
I guess where I would go with that is, isn't that true of everybody? You keep bringing up Kevin Durant and the position he's in. You've been told that, right? Are you as a big a celebrity as Kevin Durant?
No, not even close.
But you follow that credo, right?
Yes, I do.
So shouldn't everybody? Isn't that?
Yes.
Well, you keep bringing up Kevin Durant like you're this Kevin. Why are you doing it? This is for the every person.
No, because
this is for everybody, and everybody does it every day on Twitter. Millions of people,
right,
get called out, or you get in a conversation, they don't like what somebody says, and they answer back. They don't like what somebody says about them, and they answer back. So it doesn't matter if you're regular Joe, regular Jane, or Kevin Durant.
But those people aren't being attacked personally, and he is.
They certainly
just
can
going
be.
back directly.
You read Twitter?
But you don't know who they are. If
Kevin doesn't know who they are, these people don't know who they are. They're on Twitter with millions of people, and they're saying something, and they're getting attacked for. You've seen debates back and forth about the president?
Of course, the threads that go on. I understand that.
It stops being about the president, starts being about that person. They get attacked, and they fire back.
Right. Go ahead, Will.
Well, to be clear, you're right, Greeny. I mean, what Kevin Durant is doing, I believe, on Twitter and YouTube comments, on Instagram posts, fake shadow accounts, is lame. It's weird. It's crazy to be doing that. But you learned that lesson, Greeny, to be clear, because you're the one that brought this up. You learned that in therapy, meaning it's something that you're working on, that we all working on. Maybe on that particular lesson, you've mastered it. I'm not justifying what Kevin Durant is doing. In fact, I'm going to say it again. I think it's lame and weird. But what I am appreciating is his honesty about that lame and weird act that he's doing. That's showing vulnerability. And by the way, I'm not a psychiatrist, or I'm not a psychologist either. But that seems to be sort of the first step of being, you know what, I got this thing, I do this, I really shouldn't. It's not good for my mental health.
I guess that's my point, because I agree with you. What he's doing and answering back to people, I agree, shouldn't be done. But my point is, it's way easier said than done. It's so easy to say what we should do. Well, you shouldn't answer that. Well, no kidding. I mean, I think we all know that, yet everybody does it. And we all try and learn the lesson and not do it. As I said, I've had buttons pushed enough on Twitter where I've gone back. I've gone after a fan on a football field. It goes to a level. Everybody has a level. Should I have? No, absolutely not. But I did, and everybody has that line.
And juxtapose that to me against the way Kyrie Irving acted on First Take the other day in his interview with Max and Stephen A., where his general attitude was condescension, the questions and introspection, at least from anybody else's point of view, like I don't have to explain my decision making to you, just respect it as a man. That doesn't A, ring as honest, and B, not that this is as important as being honest, but make you likable, because you're not being vulnerable and honest about the true things that are driving you in life. Kevin Durant's wrong, but he's also being vulnerable about it. And in the end, it makes him somebody we can identify with and a little more likable.
Look, I think that Kevin Durant has been one of the most likable celebrities that we've had in the sports world for a long time. His departure from Oklahoma City to Golden State created a lot of negativity, but this is the same guy who called his mom the real MVP, and this is the same guy who wore a backpack to post-game press conferences, and everyone thought it was great. He seems like a great guy, is the point I'm making.
You know what he is? He's a bad villain. And he's trying to be a villain at times, from time to time. And he's not. He's just.
It's not naturally in him.
Yeah. LeBron wasn't a good villain in Miami. He never been a villain at all and didn't want to be a villain. There are guys that just can't be good villains.
Right. Yeah. And what I'm talking about, and maybe I'm not making my point well, and I want to move on to a couple of other things. I'm not trying to make the incredibly simplistic point people shouldn't respond on. I understand that point. My point is, if you're going to the level where you are creating a false account to write back things that are defending you in ways that's
another level.
That strikes me as
absurd, man.
Who is having his own sense of self called into question by the things that are being said about him. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, Greeny, you stink, or whatever, or Will Cain, I hate you, or Golic.
Never happens.
Yeah, that doesn't. Right, everyone loves Cain, but you know what I mean. That stuff is what it is. That's not going to get you to your soul. You're not going to get to Mike Golic, you're a 53-year-old man with enormous accomplishments and all that kind of stuff. Someone says, Golic, you're a dope. It's not going to impact the way you view yourself.
Right.
If you're going to the level of creating a false account to write back, well, he had no one to play with besides Russ and he hated playing for Billy Donovan, that suggests to me that this stuff is actually getting to him in a way that is meaningful.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to, beyond just the usual devolution or de-evolution, whatever the word I'm looking for is, of the discourse that takes place if you mention the president on Twitter or anything like that. It goes to a different level, and I may not be making my point very well.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right, and Kevin Durant knows it, apparently.
All right, Mike and Mike. Will Cain is here. He loves my sweater, the Swacket. We are
do you really?
Do you? What do you think of it?
Do you like
you wear this?
You know, the idea I do not like.
Okay.
The idea of a cardigan in general, I do not like.
Why
the
is that?
only cardigan that I've ever looked at and go, yeah, I like that cardigan is The Dudes in The Big Lebowski, which was on HBO again last night and completely and utterly holds up. It's among the great things in life, like Ice Water, The Big Lebowski. And he wears an amazing cardigan in that. Yours? It's
a cardigan.
You don't like it?
I wouldn't wear it. It looks good on Greeny.
He doesn't want to insult me.
No, he doesn't. He's being very nice.
Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guest on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Next, Bob, I keep calling him Bob McAdoo.
Oh, Ben
McAdoo, the coach of the Giants, and of course Bob McAdoo is a Hall of Famer from the NBA. Ben McAdoo calling out Eli Manning in a somewhat personal and direct way after his team's performance on Monday night, which has been consistently awful. Your thoughts on that?
He's right. McAdoo was 100% right. That was sloppy quarterback play and that fourth down in the red zone up against the goal line. Eli didn't manage the clock. Ben McAdoo pointing out the obvious, I don't think is something to criticize him for. He apparently has a relationship with Eli, or we're going to find out very soon that he doesn't. He apparently has a relationship with Eli that can survive this kind of direct criticism.
How about if someone were to ask Eli after the game, you seem to be getting a lot of pressure back there. Why do you think that you're getting so much pressure? And he said, well, you know what? It's a bad coaching decision. They should be helping out my left tackle, but they can't, so I can't get anything done back there. So Ben is very stubborn, instead of sloppy, very stubborn in the way he likes to design an offense, and he refuses to acknowledge the obvious, which is that I'm getting destroyed from the blind side practically every time I go back there, and even when I'm not, I'm feeling a rush that isn't coming, and it's impacting us in a negative way. If he said that, the world would stop spinning on its axis.
But do you think that they have an equal relationship?
Yeah, well, I mean, candidly, Eli Manning has accomplished infinitely more in football than Ben McAdoo ever has.
But they don't have an equal relationship. Coach and player do not exist on the same hierarchical leadership plane. That's the simple truth of it. If
Eli Manning's contract is like $100 million, and Ben McAdoo's is probably 10% of that. I don't know exactly what his contract is.
You're telling me who's more important to the franchise.
Eli.
But yes, and no one's going to disagree with that. But you criticize up, it's different than criticizing down. Ben McAdoo is Eli Manning's boss. I don't care how much more important Eli is to the organization, and if you think that's if it were in reverse, you would have a serious leadership and thus winning problem. Look at guys like Nick Saban. Look at guys like Bill Belichick. It's very clear the way the ball rolls down the hill, the way the hierarchy works. And I believe that's how successful organizations have to work. And if you're criticizing down, that's acceptable. Criticizing up, not acceptable.
You know what you don't hear Bill Belichick say? That. He says the players played bad. We coached bad. We all didn't do well enough together. I completely disagree with you. Ben McAdoo can feel that all he wants. You don't say it. You say, you know what, we all need to work better at this. We all need to, from a coaching standpoint to a player standpoint, to get this thing done. I never see any value, even though you say it may be right, and I understand, I don't see any value at all in calling out the player. Because you know what? Eli knows. And in film, they go over it. But to me, there is no need publicly to do that. It's a team game. You win together, you lose together. Everybody hated Andy Reid for the way he did his press conferences. I loved him. I see that. I'm just that way. Give me boring as hell. It's a team game. We didn't coach well enough. They didn't play well enough. We got to get better. That's what we need to do. That's what I want to hear publicly.
So
that's
we can
the
agree.
Only thing I want to hear.
We can agree on this to disagree. But Will, you bring up in its own way a more interesting point, which is, and would you argue that that Ty Lue is LeBron James' boss? And would you argue that Eric Spoelstra was LeBron or D Wade's or anybody else's boss in Miami? Would you argue that Belichick and Brady maybe is a bad example, but that when you have a player of that magnitude, and Eli is not LeBron and he's not but he's a future Hall of Fame quarterback who has led that team to 2 championships and is the franchise and has been the franchise for a long time. I think the debate over who is whose boss would come down to this. Can I fire you or can you get me fired? You know what I mean? Like if in theory you work for me, if in the hierarchy of our job, I'm your boss. But if you were to go above me and say, I don't want that guy to be my boss anymore, and they'd listen to you, then in all ways that really matter, you cease to be my boss. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I understand what you're saying. I don't think the model for long-term success is predicated upon the what do you call it? The talent running the management. I don't think that's
inmates running the asylum.
Yeah, inmates running the asylum. Some reason I was in chickens and coops. I don't know.
But they have to be
somewhere there, Golic,
hand in hand. Jeff Van Gundy said it to us years ago. I've quoted it a million times. The most important relationship in any sports organization is between the coach and the best player.
Yes.
If they are as one, then you have a chance to succeed. If they are not, then you have almost no chance.
I agree with Will on this one. You have to show respect up. You have to show respect for that position.
Yeah.
So I agree with – I don't want to see it – I still don't agree with what McAdoo did, but I don't agree with you. I agree with you on who really runs the show and, hey, if it's me or him, who it's going to be. I agree with that.
And LeBron did. We all agree on that.
But I think as a player, you have to show the respect that that's the head coach, at least publicly. You know, what may go on behind closed doors, I don't know. But publicly, I think that's the perception that you want out there.
No, I understand that. And Eli didn't do anything of the kind.
No. But you were asking the question. I think we all know what guys have the power and what guys don't have the power. But we're talking about where do you show that?
Yeah.
To me, you don't do it publicly.
All right, one more for Will Cain here before you leave here. I'm going to make you try on this jacket, and I'm going to take a picture of you of the Carter jacket. Jerry Jones, and anyone who knows you love the Cowboys. He has been in the center of a lot of conversation of late. We now know that DeMaurice Smith will be representing the Players Association for at least 3 more years. We believe Roger Goodell will continue as the commissioner of the NFL on into the future. But Jerry Jones has injected himself into the process, particularly the compensation process, and it creates an interesting dynamic with the specter of the Ezekiel Elliott thing floating over it all. What's your take?
Well, what I think Jerry Jones, to the extent that he has injected himself into the compensation process for Roger Goodell, is essentially pointing out that the emperor has no clothes. You know the famous saying, the emperor that walks around and nobody's willing to challenge him, and point out that he talks about the amazing fashion that he's wearing, but it's invisible clothes that he's wearing. He's been sold fraudulent clothes. They're invisible, and nobody's willing to tell him that, except for one peasant along the streets who goes, the emperor, he has no clothes.
Right.
Jerry Jones is showing that moment because I have sat on this program. You've sat on this program, Greeny. I know you have as well, Golic, where we've said, you know what? In the end, no matter what the CBA says, Roger Goodell has all the power. In the end, we can lament due process. We can talk about the fact that the league doesn't have any kind of coherent, logical system of justice. But in the end, Roger Goodell has all the power. But you know what? The emperor has no clothes. Roger Goodell doesn't have all the power.
The commissioner has the power which has been given to him by the owners.
I think Jerry Jones probably watched a few too many hours of Mike and Mike one day and goes, you know what? I don't think he does have all the power. And he's taught us what real due process is when there is no legal system of due process. You know what power is? I'm going to step in here and go, what you making, Roger? And then we're going to all remember who's really in charge here.
That's an interesting thought because it is true. And I mean, when you stop and think about it, That is absolutely true. They hired him. They're the ones that make the decision. So you really say Roger Goodell has the power. The commissioner has the power because of that position he's in, but it's the owners who put
We've
him in
acted
that
like
position.
there's no check and balance on Roger
No,
Goodell. We've acted like this whole due process thing, this whole CBA thing, Roger Goodell, no check on him.
Yep.
Turns out there was.
Listen, you're so right, and I would take it a step farther. That's why he's worth every penny they pay him, because he deflects all of the criticism for all the things. Most of the things people don't like about the National Football League are not Roger's idea. He's got to sell them. He's got to stand up there in front of everyone and take all the arrows, and so these billionaires don't have to take them. They can hang out with their players. You never hear the players say, I hate the guy who owns my team. They hate Roger. Well, who do you think Roger answers to?
Worth every penny?
Worth every penny.
$44 million, something like that.
Sure.
I wonder if you can get that done for $15 million.
Well, you probably
they're
could.
going to test that, but hey, I'll take the 44.
But my point is, if I'm Woody Johnson or I'm Robert Kraft or I'm Jerry Jones and I own an asset that's worth $4.5 billion, what do I care if this guy gets another $44 million divided up amongst 32 teams? If he keeps all the heat off of me, if I don't have to deal with all of that criticism and he takes all of it instead, that strikes me as a pretty good investment. No?
As my friend Ryan Russillo said, this guy, he's always telling me I'm wrong. I'm spending a lot of money on this. I wonder if I can get that done for $15 million instead of 44. At some point you go,
you probably can.
Yeah, you probably would, but I'm not going to sit here and say he was overvalued at $44 million. He does a big service for those owners. As I said, insert him instead of Leonidas at the end of 300 when all those arrows are raining down. That's Roger Goodell's taking a lot of arrows and he gets paid very well. And if he has to settle for 20 or 25 mil, he'll still be okay.
It'll be interesting to find out if he'll do that.
You're right.
Take a pay cut
be
like
his
that?
choice.
How would you assess, very quickly, Will, because we have to run along, would you assess the chances that, I don't know, by the time the next CBA comes up, that someone other than Goodell is the commissioner?
Low but existent. I don't know, 25% possibility.
That feels high to me.
That does?
Yeah.
I think they're. I famously mixed this up on First Take one time about what the canary in the coal mine means. The canary died because of gases underneath the mines, and he's the first one to go, and it was an air quality system. Like, oh no, the canary's dead. We might get out of here. There's some tremors. There's some things going on here between Roger Goodell, Robert Kraft. Jerry Jones, Robert Kraft. That you might go, I don't know if everything's on the copacetic for Roger Goodell.
Two things. I think it's almost nil that he won't be there. I think it'll be him and
nil
doing this. Almost nil. And you brought up two fables today, two stories, whatever.
I got more. We were going to do Charles Tillman, and I was going to talk about Charlie Munger.
Canary in the mine. Holy smokes.
We got to run along, though. But Will Cain, again, you hear him coast to coast today, hosting with Ryan Russillo, 1 o'clock Eastern here on ESPN Radio. You see him on First Take all the time and so much more. Good to see you, Will.
Thanks,
well
fellas.
done. Thank you, as always.
Okay, keep your eyes closed.
Okay.
I want to show you my first ever painting.
All right.
Okay. Open your eyes.
Oh, that's a lot of colors and shapes.
So be honest. What do you think?
Well, I like how if you switch to Geico, you could save hundreds of dollars on car insurance.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Here, why don't I hold your paintbrush while you call them?
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Anyway, so we're going to do a trivia question here. So we're giving away these bobbleheads, and people seem to really be excited about winning them. And Mike's wife, Chris, had the very good idea of doing Mike and Mike trivia questions. And so we asked one earlier this morning. It was fun. And we have another one here. So the Twitter fingers are ready. Andrea is ready to scroll through the mentions. So tweet at Mike and Mike with the answer to the following question. And if you are the first one with the correct answer, Golic's going to send you a bobblehead.
We only did this once on the 18 years of this show, but it was memorable. In 2006, we actually married a couple during the show.
Yes.
I mean, like legally. They were married during the show.
It was awesome.
It was fantastic. Jason and Catherine, two lovely, lovely people who we still keep in touch with today. And this was in 2006. The trivia question is this. Both of them, because it was the same team. What team did they root for?
And I'm being told in my ear right now by Brooksy that we have video of the marriage.
Don't show it yet, right?
Exactly. We're not showing it because it gives away the answer to the question.
We'll wait a little bit. We'll talk about it, and then once somebody gets the answer, we'll show the video because it's prominent in the video. But that was a ball.
Oh, my goodness.
That was fantastic.
That was one of the best promotions that we ever did.
Yeah.
They got married on our show on March 14th, 2006. It was in a studio here at ESPN. for reasons known only to him, Bill Walton was so moved by this, he decided to come. So Bill Walton was there.
Yes.
George Bodenheimer, the president of ESPN,
we have a winner,
there.
I'm being told.
I'm told we have a winner.
So you go ahead and show the B-roll now if we want.
And that will give it away,
Yeah.
as for those of you watching it on ESPN2. That's Catherine being walked down the aisle with the aisle that we created by her dad.
And if you see already, for those watching on TV, the mascot, it's a Florida Gator. They're Florida fans.
Oh, the crazy Florida Gators.
Crazy colors, Florida colors that you see everywhere, including Florida Gators.
And that's Jason's son. So he had a son, and I remember her words were really beautiful about how she was delighted to have the son in their life. And it really was a beautiful event that we had the opportunity to do. And some people, like anything else in life, a ton of people made fun of us for it. I'll never forget how many people made fun of us for it, as though we were doing something silly. And I guess it was silly.
It was, but it was great. How about back then we were getting like everything donated, and we were doing reads for like grocery stores who were donating us the cake.
Things were a little different
flowers. Then. It was hilarious, but they are such a cool couple. That was so. But I think one of the most crazy things of that was when they were panning the guests before the wedding. Yeah, you're right. There's Bill Walton.
He just was sitting there.
All
he just
7
wanted
foot
to come.
of him just standing there. It was just fantastic.
He didn't have any particular connection to us or to our show. He used to appear on our show regularly, but it wasn't as though there was anything about this that involved him. He just decided he wanted to be there for the wedding, and it was a really nice event. And
it was
anyway,
cool.
It's a good trivia.
Congrats!
Question.
I don't know. We'll find out if they have a certain affinity to any team, if there's a certain bobblehead. But so we've had 2 today. The first winner was they knew the answer to the trivia question when Bob Bacozzi.
It's all decks on hand, as you know, in a Game 7.
Sure. Was on our show, which he was so much. What was the name of his segment? It was Bob Bacozzi, Did You Know Z? And then this one, the one marriage we had on the show, like we have multiple ones. In 2006, what team did they root for? And both Jason and Catherine were just crazy Florida Gator fans. So good job. We'll do other ways to give out the bobbleheads. We'll also do more trivia. We have a lot of great trivia over the 18 years of this show. But that's a lot of fun. And we appreciate everybody tweeting in. We'll try and find different ways to give the bobbleheads out.
A lot of people are reacting. So when we mentioned Bob, we were talking about the studio that we were in.
Yeah.
We were in a tiny, tiny studio. We were never on TV in this studio.
No, we were not.
No one ever saw it in the audience. We were there from our inception, I want to say, until like somewhere in 2001, probably a year and a half.
I certainly don't remember.
It was about that.
Yeah.
And so Pete Genesini, who was our first producer, texted me a picture of us in there, and I posted it on Instagram. It's up at ESPN Greeny on Instagram if you want to see it. And the one thing people are reacting to the most is your face.
Look how fat it is?
My God.
Yeah.
I mean this in a positive way. You have lost so much weight.
A lot of it was in my face.
How old were you in that picture? How old were you in 2000?
What year was it? 2000?
What year was it?
What year was it?
You don't remember what year we started?
Oh, that's when we.
That's in the old studio. That's our first studio.
I didn't know that.
That's our first studio. That's the old studio.
I know, but I didn't know that was in 2000. I didn't know. So you're asking me. Boy, my face looks a lot thinner.
Look how different.
Well, I was born in
looks.
1962.
So you were 38.
Yeah.
When we started the show, you were 38. I was 33.
54 years old.
And you
I
look.
think
In all honesty, I'm going to say this and I mean it.
Yeah.
You look better now. You do.
A few more wrinkles.
But you look better.
Yeah,
you were just a fat guy then, and you're not now. It's that simple. Yeah. The first thing I ever said to you on the air was.
Yeah.
So they bring the two of us. Then Golic is here. Golic is doing the show with Tony Bruno.
Yeah, I'd done the show with Tony Bruno, and Tony had moved on, so we were looking for another host.
And they bring in a bunch of different people to audition, of which I'm not one.
You're not one. You're a filler for a couple days.
And they asked me to come in and do a few days because I had done radio in Chicago before I came here to be an anchor on ESPN News. And they asked me to come work with you. And I come in the very first day, and I get a good look at you. And that's the face I'm looking at.
That's what you looked at.
And I believe it was about the first words I ever said on the air to you were, Mike, I don't want to suggest that you're kind of a fat guy, but if we stood next to each other, we would be the number 10. And those are the first words I ever spoke aloud to Mike Golic.
And we met 5 minutes before the show.
And you know what I remember about that day? I came in. We're sitting there, maybe it's 20 minutes before we go on. And you said to me, do you want some coffee? We used to make coffee in that pot. Remember, you would make like a
and it would anger me when people left it empty and wouldn't refill it.
So Golic would go make coffee. And I came in, and you said, do you want some coffee? You were trying so nicely. I mean this really nicely to be hospitable. I actually almost wrote this in the dedication I made to you in my first book. Mm-hmm. And you said, can I make you some coffee? And I said, actually, I prefer tea, which I did at that time. And you said, you'll never remember this, but you said, I can make you a pot of tea. You said that to me. And I thought to myself, he's a nice guy. You just were a nice guy. And then we went on the air and I made fun of you immediately.
I remember. I do vaguely remember that, and me walking away saying, loser.
Yeah. I mean, I knew you would. I mean, you sort of had a look on your face like, I can't believe this guy doesn't drink coffee and drinks tea.
Listen, since we're telling the story, there was 13 different people that were actually up for the job of being my next co-host. That they were flying in and some of it. And my wife, as she does now, listened to every minute of the show, and she still does it, to her everlasting credit. And she would call me after the first segment of each of those auditions. And there would be some where she'd be like, oh, my God, I can't believe you have 3 hours and 45 minutes left of this garbage. Mm-hmm. And others would be, oh, it doesn't sound too bad. We'll see where it goes. And so we would talk after the first break every single time. Greeny comes on. Honestly, we didn't really know who you were. I don't mean that in a mean way at all.
I was anything but a household name.
Yeah, and we literally met 10 minutes, 5 minutes before the show. We did that first segment where he mocked me like that, and I laughed, the big fat-bellied Santa Claus laugh. And the first break hit, and I talked to my wife, 6:15 Eastern time that morning, and her quote, word for word, he sounds kind of geeky, but he's the one.
15 minutes.
15 minutes, and she called that one. The thing that amazes me most about that picture is your hair color is exactly the same.
No,
tell me
it is not.
You don't color your hair.
I have, as God is my witness.
Yeah.
I have not once colored my hair in all these 18 years. Not once. That hair and this hair have not been touched.
Yeah. Well, you may not have done your hairstylist.
No one has done it. And what's interesting is that my kids lately have started saying to me, Dad, you're getting some gray hair.
Yeah.
So I
can't really tell.
A little bit of gray
Very
hair.
tough to tell. The other thing in that picture, when you look at the whole picture, is look at the computer in that thing.
Well, that's the point.
Holy
look where we were
smokes.
sitting. We were in this tiny little studio.
But the computer, you don't see computers like that anymore.
No, because they don't exist anymore. We also had a reel-to-reel in there that we would use to cut tape. And you know what I'm remembering? I hate to even say this out loud because it's such a horrible memory amidst all these nice ones. But we were still in that room on 9/11.
Yes,
so
we
were still there at least through September of 2001.
Yes.
We started January of 2000. I was just trying to think in my head, when did we move to a different studio? That's where we were sitting.
Yes, we were.
On 9/11. So we were still there at least through September of 2001.
And let me tell you what, when we were sitting there doing that show, in no way, shape, or form did we think we'd be sitting here right now talking about the end of it 18 years later.
Are you kidding? I mean, it's been so far beyond anything that anyone, and not only didn't we expect it, I guarantee you no one else did.
And I think that was the beauty, is they left us alone.
I've said this many times. We are a testament to the value of low expectations. No one cared what we were doing.
Yep.
So by the time anyone figured out we had a show, we had kind of figured out our show.
Figured it out.
You don't get that. It's actually an advantage. It feels like a disadvantage when you start. Like, no one cares about us. No one's promoting us. No one even knows we exist. Instead, what happens is when you put a show on and there's enormous amounts of attention and there's a lot of pressure.
A lot of pressure.
And a show like this one, you don't figure out in a day.
No.
Like our first, I don't have a tape of our first day or even anything from our very beginning. But I guarantee you, if you listen to it now, we'd be like, oh my God, listen to how awful we sound.
That's where I am. You the first day, I don't have a recollection of the first 7 years.
Until we went on television, Golic will not even verify that
all
we
hazy
exist.
to me right now.
Yeah. Basically, the first thing he remembers was Letterman. The first time we went on Letterman, that's the first thing that he
I got
can
to sit next to Dave, and you were so mad about it.
That is the one thing I've never gotten over. Is all those times. We went on that show 11 times, 12 if you include the time we got bumped.
Yeah, we did. April Fool's Day. We actually thought it was an April Fool's joke.
So the time
until we were riding home after not being on.
The time we got bumped, neither of us sat next to him because we never got on the stage. But every one of those times you sat next to Dave.
Yes, I did.
I hated that.
And Dave requested that.
He did. He liked you way better than he liked me. There's no question about it. He tolerated me. He enjoyed you. He did. Listen, I get it. I understood
We went
it.
on Seth Meyers. Were you sitting next to him then? I think because you were, Northwestern guy.
I think so.
I think you got to sit next to him. Yeah.
I will neither confirm nor
you
deny that I sent
right
an advance
that
note. That I sent a note ahead of time saying, please put me next to Seth. For the rest of the country now joining us, I've just posted this picture too, and the first reaction that came in was, where's Golic's neck? I mean, you were so incredibly... You were fat. There's no two ways about it.
I can't even say big boned or fluffy. I was fat.
And I don't think that's our first studio because that's not where I sat.
No, that's not our first studio.
What do the mic flags say on that thing? That might have been on the road. We might have been in Chicago there, or
I think you're right. I think
in another station.
That is not our first studio.
That's not where we sat.
But I am fat.
Whatever it is, you are incredibly fat. The picture is on Instagram at ESPN Greeny, but the credit goes to @the Sherwin, whoever at the Sherwin is somehow had that picture, and it's me in a cardigan.
You in a cardigan.
And us in a very old studio.
Me in a short sleeve polo. You have a cardigan on today. I have a short sleeve polo on today. Yet mine's a different size than the tent I'm wearing there.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, look how incredibly
holy small. I hope I'm doing something in that picture that makes me look bigger than I actually am.
Like what?
I don't know. Breathing? That is horrific.
You are just sitting there. Not to quote John Madden, but you are just sitting there, and
no
you do.
No wonder my wife likes the lights off.
You were not anymore. Look at you now. Look how handsome you are now. You look much better.
You know what? I feel much better.
You've lost a lot of weight. All right. Anyway, a lot of reminiscing, and we'll continue to do that as we can. But we got a lot of other things to get to here. So, wrapping up what's been a busy day. The top story this morning was Major League Baseball setting a new home run record. And what are your overriding thoughts, Mike, on what this means for the sport and the way people are viewing it?
Well, I mean, do we think it's going anywhere? Now, I really would like to see a baseball from like 2012 and this year, as these sabermetricians are saying that the ball is different, that it's actually a little bit smaller, and that the stitching is not as raised, so it's less resistance when hitting the air. Is that it? Is the swing different? We know players are bigger, faster, stronger. It doesn't necessarily mean better. You know, I don't know, Greeny. I guess ratings will tell the story. Now, last year you had the great story of the Cubs, which certainly added to it. It doesn't look like it's going to, now it's the Indians and the Dodgers at this point. So I don't know. I guess ratings will bear it out. I certainly don't mind. I loved the home run race, back in 99, 2000 and all that when that was all going on. I enjoyed that. I heard actually my son Mike talking about this morning. Would you trade that in? Would you wipe that out to enjoy those numbers still being big today and having someone attain those numbers today? Would you forego having had the joy of watching those? Watching those home runs and then what Bonds did? Because we loved it. We couldn't get enough of that home run chase.
Well, McGuire and Sosa definitely.
And Bonds, too.
Well, by
people
the time
didn't like
Bonds
him as
came
much.
along, and people already, we had major suspicion.
We did.
There was a lot more steroid
and
talk.
He wasn't as likable. The thing of McGuire and Sosa had the hop, and the whole deal.
Yes, they were very likable. And the degree to which the conversation was about steroids then was 1/10, 1%.
Right, I agree.
What it was around Bonds. Which took a lot of the fun out of it.
It did. He took a lot of the fun out of it.
Yeah, he wasn't a fun guy. And McGuire really wasn't a fun guy when that thing started. He was sort of a sullen, brooding character. And Sosa kind of brought some of the fun out in him.
Yeah, he did.
As that season went along, and then we all saw where it wound up. Right. It's a very good question.
Yeah.
It's one I can't answer in the 1 minute that we have to think about it. What is your answer? If you heard him ask, would you trade that?
No, I loved it.
To have the home run records back now, though? Think about what we'd be talking about.
Well,
if the home run record was 61 and Giancarlo Stanton was at 55.
I'm not a baseball purist like everybody else is.
Forget purist, but we'd have a record to chase right now.
Still have a record.
The record's unbreakable. No one will ever hit 73 home runs.
Boy. I'm going to need more time to think about it as
It's
well.
a good question.
It up way too late.
All right. I'm told that is the first studio. They just positioned us in those seats for the picture. It's on Instagram at ESPN. Greeny and Golic.
They positioned me with a crane?
Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. Mike and Mike.
Beep, beep, beep.
First time skydiving?
Sure is.
Okay, you just open the door like this and you jump. Wait.
Should we be like in tandem?
Tandem? That's a great idea.
Are you a certified instructor?
No, but I love parachutes and I love people. Here we go.
You wouldn't take chances with an uncertified skydiving instructor. Don't do it with your finances. Find a certified financial planner professional today at letsmakeaplan.org. CFP. Work with the highest standard.